Well, I guess we can just get into the questions.
Sure.
So what first brought you into the music industry, and what made you choose marketing out of all the other careers in this industry?
Yeah, so for me, honestly, since I was young, I always knew that I wanted to do something in entertainment. For me, I always thought it was going to be in sports, because I was an athlete my whole life and I played basketball in college. So really, up until college, I thought I was going to work in sports, but where it took a turn for music is when I stopped playing basketball in college. I was 18, I was of age, so well, I was an adult now, and I started going to more concerts, music festivals because I was an adult and I was able to. And I've always had an over the top passion for music, but I never had any clue that I could work in music. But, in college, when I started going to more concerts and festivals, I just got curious and I started wondering who's behind all of this. There's people that actually work in music and that are putting on these huge shows and working for these artists. So for me, I just kind of started going to the rabbit hole of studying the music industry, did research on different positions. First position that I came across which was the A&R position. I was like, wow, this sounds like a dream job. You literally get paid to listen to music. Um, so yeah, from there, I just was relentless on trying to find my first opportunity. And the first opportunity I got in music was an A&R internship role. And from there, my foot was in, and I've been in music since. Um, so yeah, kind of just a combination of, knowing that I wanted to work in entertainment and then just real life experiences, having fun. And that curiosity just grew as I got older. Now, why I chose marketing, I actually changed my major in college 3 times. I was a communications major at first because I wanted to do sports broadcasting. But then at that point, I realized I didn't want to be in front of the camera. And then from there, I changed to a sports management major, because I knew I wanted to do more behind the scenes type stuff in sports. But switched my major again once I realized I wanted to work in music. I switched to marketing just because it seemed like a good major to invest in if I wanted to get into the music industry. Um, so really the reason why I chose marketing without honestly even having any idea what marketing was just like the job descriptions when I went into like the career center. They were like, if you do marketing, these are all the cool type jobs you could have. And I remember in business, there's like the sales, different bunch of different concentrations, right? But marketing looked like it had the most fun jobs. So that was really what compelled me to do marketing, was just like that sheet I saw at the career center. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Like when you decided you wanted to do marketing, was it like, oh, I want to do marketing and music, or it was just kind of like just
Yeah, no idea. I didn't know I wanted to do music marketing until after I graduated. Um, I just knew that I liked all the jobs under the marketing description. And I was mainly looking at like the sports jobs under there, to be honest. But then after I graduated, I was like, whoa, I can actually like mix my two passions. Like I can combine my passion for music and then my degree in marketing and go after a music marketing role. But that, yeah, I didn't get that clarity until I graduated, honestly, after, I did a couple more internships in sports and then, got that music internship. But I would say I didn't have full clarity on my career path until maybe like a year after I graduated.
so you started like doing more music positions after you had graduated, right?
So my first internship as an A&R was during college. I was in 6 classes at the time managing that internship, and it was a lot. It was crazy because I actually went on tour while I was in those 6 classes. Um, but from that moment, I knew that I loved working in music. Then it got to a point where it was a little bit too overwhelming, so I hit the brakes on music. The internship ended. I focused on finishing my studies. And then after I graduated, I jumped straight back into music. I got this like this social media management role for a label. So I was like helping the artists run their social media stuff. So that was really like my second role in music. And then after that, I had discovered Contrabrand Agency, which is how you know me. But yeah, it was a bunch of like little indie music type jobs I got. It was nothing big, as big as the role I have now, where I'm actually working for a major label now. But yeah, it was like 3 different roles with indie labels, agencies, um, and that helped me build, the experience to be able to get the opportunity I had now.
Yeah. So, speaking of Contrabrand, so you first started out as an intern. Um, were there any specific skill sets you had that you think made you stand out?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I had started off with Contrabrand, I was willing to pretty much start as an intern at first because I knew that they had a lot of knowledge and info that I needed. But obviously they hired me because there was something about my background that they found interesting, right? So for me, I feel like it was just the passion for music, understanding the industry, the different cultures and stuff, and just like that was enough to get me indoors, because people can see your passion shine through and people know when you know what you're talking about. And people know like if you really know about music, so that I think just the passion shine through. And then also my previous experience as an A&R, helped in ways as well. But I wouldn't say it was like too many really hard skills that got me in with them. Like I didn't know how to run a single ad when I started with them, nor had I ever done like an influencer campaign. That's all stuff I learned while working with Contrabrand. But before that, yeah, it was really just like the passion for music and understanding the industry.
Um, yeah, when you were working on Contraband, you were running like ad campaigns, influencer campaigns. What was your day-to-day work like different compared between Contraband and a major label like Def Jam?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's very different because with, an indie agency like Contrabrand, you work with very few people. But the good thing about that is you wear a lot of different hats, right? So because of that, you learn a lot of different things. So when I was at Contrabrand, I was a project manager, but I was also setting up the influencer campaigns, and I was also hands-on with setting up the ads and, you know, speaking to managers and artists and letting them know how like the campaigns are doing. I was doing the campaign reporting. Whereas at a major label, you work with a ton of people on the daily, and there's a role for every single, like every person has a role for all those things I just described, right? So at Contrabrand, I played a million different roles, whereas at the major label, my role is a lot more specific now. So I get to focus a lot more on just like my job and the actual creative. Um, but I would say I'm super grateful for, the Contrabrand experience because the fact that I got to wear all those different hats is what makes me a lot more powerful at the major label now, because a lot of people who've been working for the major label system for years now, they've never worn as many hats that I've worn, right? They might have 5, 10 years of experience on me, but they don't have like that nitty gritty experience, really in the trenches experience that I had at Contrabrand. So if I was to recommend to anyone, I mean, there's nothing wrong with going indie first and like DIY and starting, with a small company. Um, but yeah, I would just say that that's really the biggest day-to-day difference is I'm not wearing as many hats. And now at the major label, working with so many different people, it can be challenging at times too, because there's just so many people you have to talk to just to get one small task done sometimes. But yeah, that's the main difference.
What's the role that you mainly do at Def Jam now, since like it's not so many like positions you're taking
Mhm.
on?
Yeah, so I do a lot of the same work that I did at Contrabrand. So for example, if I have an artist, right, and let's say I'm leading their album rollout, for me, I'm not setting up their actual ads or actually executing their influencer campaigns for them. I'm doing all the planning and strategizing behind it, right? But I'm actually delegating that work to the different departments now to do it. So we have like an ad department, we have an influencer department. So my job is to bring the team together, create the plan, delegate it, and make sure it gets done. Whereas at Contrabrand, I was just that one man team.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, do you think that do you think that it was more stressful working within a small team versus, or do you think there's more stress that comes with working at a major label?
Yeah, that's a great question because they really can be both just as stressful sometimes. I would say the main difference at the indie side, like with Contrabrand, is it could be stressful because you had to wear so many different hats, and like doing it all could get stressful at times. Um, but at the major label, I do feel that relief where I don't have to do it all, but there's definitely a whole lot more pressure, which can be stressful. Pressure to perform and to make these campaigns actually excel, right? So for at a major label now, I'm working with a lot bigger artists. And if I'm leading these campaigns and these campaigns don't perform well, the pressure falls back on me. So definitely just a lot more pressure at the major label, but um I personally enjoy it. I'm weird. I like working under pressure, but yeah, I think that answered your question, right?
Yeah. Um, so I guess that's like kind of goes into the next question I'm gonna ask, which is like the pros and cons between working at an indie position or label versus like a major label.
Yeah.
Which is like the pressure of it. What are some like other things that you feel like you kind of like miss? Like maybe at like an indie label, you were like more hands-on and like working directly with the artist. How's that like at Dutch Jam?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So it's actually interesting because at a major label now, I'm actually still very closely involved with each artist. Like I have a pretty good relationship with most of the artists that I work with. Um, but what I will say I miss the most about being at Contraband is like I think things just were always a lot more relaxed, whereas at a major label, there's a lot more people, and in anything you do when there's a lot of people involved, that means there's more politics involved, more, drama involved, whatever, more personalities you have to deal with. So I guess just like learning to be able to work with so many different people is a challenge, and definitely sometimes miss the days at Contraband where I only had to work with 3 people and I was just in my own lane, kind of did my own thing. No one was bothering me, whereas like now my phone is blowing up 24/7 from all these people, emails flying through everywhere, Slack messages flying through everywhere. But yeah, I guess that's the main thing is just that I would say I miss. But as far as like my day-to-day role at Def Jam, I love it. Like I have a blast. I love what I do. Um, but yeah, the all the people, it's definitely different.
Yeah. Um, Question is, what are the common misconceptions? Sorry, what are the common misconceptions about major labels, and do you think they stand true?
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting misconceptions about major labels. A lot of the videos you see out there are people bashing major labels because of the history that major labels have. You look back then, there was these insane deals, 80-20% deals, where they would just absolutely scam the artists, which they were scams. And major labels have that reputation forever now. Well, thankfully the deals are a lot more fair nowadays. But I think a lot of misconception is just like everyone thinks major labels are evil or out to get artists or scam artists or like Illuminati or all these crazy things, right? Which valid point considering all the history. But when working at a major label, you'll actually get to learn that like everyone that works at a major label is extremely cool and everyone really looks out for the best interest of the artist, you know? So I don't think it's as like evil as people think. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to be on this side now, you know, because I'm in the weeds of it. But I'm grateful to work for a team like Def Jam where we really are we we almost operate like a startup, honestly, because our team is so young. We have Tunji, the new CEO now, and he is like extremely young himself. So we kind of operate in the new way, which is really refreshing. But I know that not the entire industry has caught up to what we're trying to do out here at Def Jam. But I will say that I think the music industry is headed in a healthier way, you know, and people or companies like Def Jam are kind of, I think, a good example of you know where the future is headed. But yeah, I would say that's the biggest misconception is that major labels are evil, but everyone in the building, most people in my office right now are not evil.
Yeah. Um, so as you know, you gotta have thick skin while working in the music industry. What's been the most challenging thing you've had to overcome?
Yeah, for sure need thick skin because, you know, like I said, there's so many different personalities. And there's times where your own coworkers will frustrate you, or on top of it, you know, there's always artists and managers that are going to frustrate you. You know, that was the situation at Contrabrand as well. I was annoyed by artists and managers every single day, but that's part of the job. But now it's like you internally have to deal with that as well now with your own coworkers, you know. Wait, I totally lost my train of thought. Re-ask the
Okay.
question again.
What's been the most challenging thing
Oh,
you had to overcome?
yeah. So just really learning to stay calm, you know, and like re- this job will test you, you know, and it will make you feel frustrated at times. But I think just really getting to a healthy mindset and staying grounded, you know, and not letting people get under your skin. And for me, whenever I get super frustrated or I deal with a tough manager, I kind of just take a step back and I'm like, listen, you work in music. Like, there's nothing to be stressed about. You have a really cool job. So I think a lot of the times when you are feeling that pressure or stress, just learning how to bring yourself back down to earth and remember the reality of everything that I work in music, and I'm so blessed to have this job. So whenever I do get stressed and I bring myself back and I have that realization, I automatically feel relieved. So biggest challenge is really just, yeah, being able to talk to yourself through those moments. Because I work in entertainment and people in entertainment are crazy, you know, not crazy, but every single artist that I work with and manager, they all think that their artist is the next superstar. So they're all very passionate, right, about their artists, which is fair. But when you have 20 to 30 different artist managers that all feel super passionate about their project in the same way, you know, it can be very frustrating sometimes just to deal with all the different personalities. But yeah, you kind of, it's just, that's honestly just kind of a life skill that you have to work on. But for me, like I've really tried to protect my peace, you know, and I really separate my two lives, like my personal and my music life. You know, I try to go to the gym, eat well, and all of that at the end of the day helps me balance out the craziness of working in music.
What's the rewarding thing working in music?
What's what?
What's been the most rewarding thing working in music?
Yeah, for sure. I think most rewarding is just it's always seeing the work that you put in actually pay off, you know? So for me, working with the big artists and stuff is really fun, but I get the most reward when I build an artist from the ground and see them grow. So, you know, for me, I prefer working with the more ground zero artists who don't have a lot of followers, fans yet, and seeing them be built out over the months and seeing like, you know, the impact of your work. Um, so that's always amazing to see. I mean, it's always rewarding being out and hearing music playing, whether I'm at a coffee shop or at a club or somewhere, and like hearing a song that you marketed is always a crazy mind-blowing moment. But yeah, that's always really rewarding.
Um, so like, okay, where do you see yourself working in the future? Do you see yourself working at like something like a distribution company, or like maybe working on being part of an artist team?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's honestly something I haven't even quite figured out yet. Because for me, a lot of the way I've always operated is I just do what feels right in the moment, you know, and I don't try to look too far in the future because for me, I'm just following what feels right at the time, and for me, that's always led me the right direction. So, you know, where I'm gonna be in 5 years from now, I have not a clue, but what I will say is that I'm pretty confident I'll still be in music. You know, this is like my career, and I feel like I have found what I'm passionate about. Um, Music marketing, I think that is like my niche. I've found it, and I would imagine that I'm gonna be doing this for a while. Whether it's still gonna be at Def Jam or somewhere else, I have no idea, but I am pretty comfortable at Def Jam right now, and I see myself being here for a while. Um, do I see myself working for like an artist team, like as a manager? It's really interesting because if you would have asked me this a few years ago, I would have told you that I wanted to be an artist manager. But now I don't, for me, I don't feel as much interest to be like actually a part of an artist team. Um, I kind of like the big experience that I'm having now at Def Jam, just being part of like multiple projects at once. Um, but you really never know. You know, for all I know, I'm going to end up as an artist manager or working at a distribution company. Um, but I right now just know that working at a label feels right, especially for such an iconic label like Def Jam. You know, and for me, a lot of like my past just being an athlete, I feel like I've always worked in a team environment and I've always really enjoyed that, you know, so being with such an iconic label like at Def Jam kind of like feeds that part of my soul that needs that, you know, like that team environment. Um, so yeah, we'll see, but I'm not too sure. You have to stay posted on where I go.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, this is the last question. Um, what's a piece of advice you would give to someone like me trying to make their way into the music industry?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. So, biggest piece of advice I would say is to always follow your passions and trust your gut no matter how crazy it feels, because there are times where your mind is going to get in your the way and almost want like talk you out of what you envision or dream of. Because working in music is such a big crazy vision and dream, you know, because the music industry has always been thought of like as such a gate kept hard industry to get into. And because of that, you know, people can be discouraging or can be like, why would you want to work in music? Like, you're not going to make it, or like, that's crazy. Like, go be something more traditional. Right. So, what I wish someone would have told me is, no, you can actually do anything you want. And I full heartedly believe like anyone can be anything they want to be if they put their mind into it, you know? So, just not letting other people steer you away from your dreams, or your own thoughts steer you away from your dreams, because it will happen. And there's plenty of times where I've honestly thought about stopping music because there have been times or low moments at times, you know, and it's sometimes easy just to think like, "Ah, I'm going to give up and go for a more traditional job." So best piece of advice is just like, if this is what's feeding your soul in the moment and it feels right, you know, just continue to go after it and see where it leads you. But I will say is like, it truly is not that hard to get your foot into music, and you already got your foot in, you know, you're on this call with me, you know, the whole Contrabrand team, so it's a step in the right direction. My biggest advice is just to keep doing what you're doing and don't let anyone stop you.